who's the straight man and who's the comedian. We'll take turns. I'll start with one thing briefly. We don't have a topic today, guys, so please raise your hand, ask your questions, contribute. This call is all about you guys. I did have one thing I wanted to share with you, and this is not a great win success story, but it's a good case of our subscribers making good use of the tools that we have. I got a Matchmaker lead. For those of you that don't know what that is, you can go to our website or go to alltheleads.com/matchmaker. And basically, if you have anything that you don't want to work or don't feel, comfortable working, it can be a lead outside your market. It could be a commercial deal if you're a residential agent. It could be a big investment that you just don't feel like you have the budget for. It could be virtually anything. Just answer about 7 or 8 questions, put it in our website. And right now, I'm personally handling these until the volume gets so big that we got to get help. But right now, it'll go directly to me. And we had one of those this week. One of our agents named Josephine in New York got a lead in an adjoining county that she really didn't work that area. So she put it in Matchmaker. And before she did that, and this was really smart, she had a conversation with the executor, and he told her the main thing I need right now, I need the $6,000 cash for a bond to get the probate up and moving, and he didn't have the money. So she went to alltheleads.com/probate cash, I believe it is, or she just went to the link on our website and she applied for probate cash. The guy heard back from him almost instantly, and whether she gets a referral fee or not, she's going to get a commission when that funds in a couple days. Now, I did contact one of our agents, a great agent in New York named James, and he was in jury duty, but 2 hours later, he got back to me. He called the lead, and I know this never happens to you guys, but the executor wants about 150,000 more than it's worth, and he wants to sell it himself. So, first time I ever heard that in my real estate career. But between James and Josephine and I think we've helped him, and I think we've established a relationship there, getting him the probate cash that hopefully, if and when he does come to his senses and decide to list, James will get the listing. So anyway, moral of this story is use the tools we have, whether it's probate cash or the Matchmaker tool there on the website. Bruce, anything you want to add, or what do you have for us today?
Oh, well, that kind of jumped out to me a little bit because I deal with those folks all the time. And the bottom line is you have an heir, an executor, or an heir maybe that isn't an executor, and they have to sell a house. It's going to be sold. So you run into a case like that. I want 150,000 more than it's worth. They'll come around. So my advice to anyone that ever runs into that is don't be too quick to correct and adjust. Don't be too quick to correct and adjust people, not before you've met. So one of the things I learned many years ago, I had a mentor that used to do this, and I've used it successfully and gotten deals since then, is they name a price. So, hey, I want 800,000 for my house, and it's worth 600. So if I were to bring you 800,000 for the house, you'd sell? Yeah. So get a commitment before you jump to trying to correct people on that, and know that rapport will give you a lot of room to be able to educate folks later. So work on your rapport first, even if they seem to be unrealistic now. If they have a house that has been inherited and they're not living there, it's vacant, the odds that they'll come to their senses eventually are pretty high. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of time.
Kind of like the progressive name your price tool, right? The commercials
Yeah.
for years for insurance, and Bruce's real estate name your price tool. And you
Mm-hmm.
don't necessarily agree with them. I can get that for you, but it just gets a conversation going. And you probably everybody else is kind of dismissing them right away, or trying to
Yeah.
argue with them. And you're not agreeing, but you're not disagreeing either. You're
Yep.
just getting involved in a discussion.
It's
Sure.
an if I could, would you approach. Hey,
Gotcha.
Not 100% sure that I can get that, but if I could, you'd sell? Yeah, I'd sell. Okay, let's meet, see what I can do. Now you've got the meeting. Now you have the opportunity to build some rapport and some credibility and some trust. Don't be quick to blow people out of the water that are unrealistic. They might be setting an anchor. And if you guys don't know what an anchor is, and I love setting anchors all the time. I want $10,000 in repair negotiations for my clients. I might ask for 20. And that seller that was thinking two, they go, holy crap, was I that far off? And then when I go to 10, they it doesn't sound so bad. If I started at 10, it might have sounded really bad. So they could be doing the same thing to you, James. They might be doing the same thing to you and those of us that hear that all the time. We just went on an appointment this week and the person said, I don't want a penny more less than 400,000 and I won't pay a commission. Okay. Well, on the open market in the MLS listed, it's worth 320, and that's if they pay me. I didn't rush out and go, nope, you're not going to get it. Bye. I'm not talking to you. I had the appointment, got some rapport. It's not a deal now. It'll probably be a deal later. So,
Yep. Reminds me way back in my selling career, before the market was, was red hot. It was hot and cold, but the interest rates went from 8 to 18%. When I was working with a buyer, I would usually encourage them to go in, if they wanted to buy it for 300, if they're willing to buy it for 290 and it was listed for 300, I'd encourage them to go into 280. That way you can meet halfway and everybody feels like they won. So similar strategy. I mean, you don't want to encourage people to make a lower offer, but you don't. Sometimes it's to their detriment to go in with your very highest and best especially in a non-competitive market. So
can be. Yep.
yep. All right. Scott, you've had your hand up for a long time, sir. What can we do for you? Scotty, can we unmute you or unmute
Oh,
yourself?
Scott, hold on. You got to do it again. I hit the button right at the wrong time and muted you again.
I think that worked.
Yeah.
This is back to the story I had a couple weeks ago with the probate, or the one I filed we filed an affidavit for lack of probate because there was a PR in the paperwork, but the will showed the kids being the what's the word, I guess, the inheritors or whatever of the estate. But it technically didn't become an estate because I was able to keep it out of probate, which would have cost them a bunch of money they didn't have. So, and the PR was fine with signing off, but that still would have required a lot of extra work and an attorney and all that stuff. So I got a hold of the lender. They had a reverse mortgage. So I was able to get some paperwork to file the intent. We had to, because they were even late. They were going to foreclosure and everything. I mean, they were starting to get letters and stuff because mom had deferred payment on a lot of stuff before she passed away. Anyway, so to get it to avoid probate was the first win. There was a mortgage on there, reverse mortgage. There was not a bunch of stuff, but there was things that needed to be handled. I went to a couple title companies in addition to the one I was open title with to find out how to avoid probate and get the PR off of it and all that. Well, the will, luckily we had both the wills and I had all the copies of everything, that they were fine with saying there's nothing that says that this PR needs to be involved because you didn't open probate. If I would have, then we'd had a whole nother can of worms. So I was able to avoid probate. We had talked about doing a rehab project on the property to make it worth more, but then it was a long time to wait and the net would have been possibly less than what we ended up with. So to get it all settled, we ended up getting everything cleared to put it on the market. I put it on the market on November 14th and had 18 offers, and I listed it as an investor property. So I didn't go for the high. We just left it as is. I said, look, guys, there's no risk here. It's going to be an investor property. We're going to get a lot of activity, and I may get you that 550 that you're happy with. And I listed it at 500. 18 offers, 65 showings. I was there all day taking buyer leads. I mean, it was crazy. And I sold it for 665, 165,000 over list. I double ended it, so I got 4% because I take a discount on my listing. If I get the buyer, I'll only take 1% on their side. And some of these offers that were coming in were asked, and I put 0% commission, write it up in your offer. So I was getting 2%, 2.5% buyer
Mhm.
agency offers and stuff. Because I figured an investor didn't need a a real estate agent in some cases, so they don't need to worry about commission. So I said 0, but write it up in your offer. We'll consider it for sure. But it was nuts, man. It went up to 670, but they were asking 2% or 2.5%. I was only taking 1, so I actually ended up helping my buyers win, which I won, and my sellers ended up with 64 grand a piece.
Wow.
It
Nice.
closed in 10 days. It closed on December 4th. Clear and easy, boom. I was like, not only am I thrilled, I got super happy clients, and that was like a pretty, and I'm capped, so that was 100% commission on me, on my side. So
And Scott,
Amazing.
it never had to go through probate, right?
nope, we got
Yeah.
the affidavit, lack of probate, which
Yep.
was fine. Um, I don't know. I did a lot of extra work on it because I was doing all the research to figure out how I could help them without going through the hassle and get it sold. But to get 165 grand over list price was insane.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chat just came in and I was going to ask you. So Anne asks, how did you avoid probate?
Well, they didn't have a living trust, but they had the will signed, and then they had the personal representatives, that were related to the wife who had passed away. But the will was very clear and direct, and all 3 kids were. One was an ex-client, so they were all on board with me. I didn't have to fight them at all. They were like, one of them calls me Big Daddy, so she just like, go for it. You do everything you need to do, and we're on board. So I got all the signatures I needed all the time. Everything went smooth. But filing the affidavit for lack of probate
Yep.
was the key to avoid the probate, because the first thing we were trying to do was get the PR to be involved in signing, but they didn't have to. You only need to when you file probate. So the PR didn't have to be involved at all, which helped us. She would have, but she was out in she didn't even have internet. We're talking out in the woods somewhere. It would have been mailing and all that stuff. So um, that was the first challenge. But after we got that handled and everything else looked good, um, and the kids had filed and saved a lot of the paperwork. So it wasn't like we had to research and find everything. They had boxes of mail. So I got copies of all the wills and the death certificates and everything that was needed. Went to a title company, got all copies. So they opened title. Everything was fine. I just went to a couple other title companies because some of them had some very expert reps that were familiar with probate.
Yep.
I called one. They said, yeah, it's going to be 5 or maybe 10 grand to open probate. And I'm like, what?
Mhm.
So I'm like, oh, we got to go a different route. So
Did the whole estate avoid probate or just the house?
that's all there was.
Only a house.
A
Okay.
house and a shop, but the lot was a buildable lot with a DADU potential. It had a 720 square foot garage that was still, but I mean, the house needs completely, like, we got a quote I have concierge services, so we can do that and get paid at closing. And that was a $230,000 quote to make it worth about 850. So the margin wasn't even, the net's better. We ended up with a better net just selling it as is.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I've never had a deal that awesome in my life. I don't think
Yep.
that.
Hey,
So
Scott, Bruce, if you had another comment, but I had another example of that when you're done. Go ahead. Did you have another comment?
I wanted Scott to explain an affidavit. What's first off, what state are you in for the crowd?
Confusion. No, I always use that line. It's a funny one. Washington State.
Washington. Okay. Um, And how does an affidavit work to avoid probate in Washington? And by the way, folks, the majority of our states have something similar to an affidavit like this. It might be called the exact same thing, but what's the affidavit name and kind of what's it say?
Can I look it up and get back to
Yeah,
you?
we don't need the name. Basically, what's it say?
Well, I just when I talked to the I don't remember if it came from a title company or if it came from the reverse mortgage lender,
Hmm.
but it was just an affidavit that said we're not filing probate. We don't need to.
Yeah,
And you just
we're
have
all
to
in
have
agreement.
all the parties sign, which is three kids, and they were all like boom, boom, boom. So I just got it filled out and did it electronically, and they signed it, and I sent it to whoever. I mean, the title company and the lender had it because they wanted to know the intent because they were getting to that point with lack of payments and a reverse mortgage. You can't, well, I guess you can foreclose, but I thought you couldn't. But they were late on something, and they started to get letters of certified letters of foreclosure. In fact, I was in the driveway when some guy walked up to serve papers of pre foreclosure, for the lender, and I said, "Well, go ahead and leave it. We're it's on the market already, so we're going to sell it." But the lender needed to know that, so they sent me an intent form to show what our intent was, which was, "Hey, we're listing it. We're going to be done with this within 30 days." Well, it closed very quickly. Like a 2 or 3 week close is all it was. And it was all cash too. It was perfect.
That's great.
That's
Uh,
awesome. So, anyone there are I've dealt with a lot of different states that have something, especially if the house is the only real asset. A lot of times you can skip over probate when the heirship is really clean. None of the heirs have passed away, leaving their stake to additional family members. But even then, there's normally an affidavit in a lot of states that you can sign that says who's getting what. We're the only heirs. We're all in agreement that this is what happens. You kind of show no debt, generally show no debt, and you can avoid probate with real estate normally, and it makes it a little easier when the real estate's the only asset. Now, I'm not going to say it was easy. You have to know that it's available. Tons of people needlessly file probate, which, by the way, is an amazing value proposition that you can present to your prospects. Is, hey, I don't know if I can, but if I can, okay, remember, if I could, would you? I don't know that I can do this. Same thing that we talked about with price a little bit ago. I'm not sure I can get you 700,000, but if I could, you'd sell, right? Yeah. Okay, I don't know if I can, but I might be able to help you avoid probate. Let me check it out. If I could help you avoid probate, would you want to? Who in their right mind would say no? It's a value proposition that at least furthers the dialogue. Now, I don't want you guys going out there and throwing that out there if that's not a possibility in your state. So please talk to an attorney in your state about what it takes to avoid probate.
And Bruce, different, but somewhat related. We always say that educate your clients to set up living trusts so you don't have to go through probate. I got a call this week from one of our salespeople, been with us a long time. His aunt was passing away in Indiana. His mother was on her going to fly up there. Matter of fact, I think she's there today to meet with an elder law attorney, get a will drawn up, set up the probate, and go through all that process. And I said to her, "Are there other assets?" And she said, "No, just the bank accounts. I'm already on them." So I called one of our subscribers, Mick, there in Indiana. He put her in touch with the title company. She's meeting with the title company today, and they're going to do a due on death deed. They're just quick claiming the house over to her. And when the death certificate records, she owns it. It doesn't have to go through probate. I mean, in here, she was going to spend, how much on a lot of needless paperwork. So there's sometimes I find, and the title company obviously has an attorney that's going to do this, but sometimes I find title companies will know the ropes a little bit better than an attorney, unless it's something they really specialize in. So there's multiple ways to get around it, and again, not to cheat anyone, but just to get around all the red tape of a probate when it isn't required, and the delay and so many other issues. So good example.
This one did have a debt due on death clause in the reverse mortgage, but I found out it was 6 months. So they were already, getting to that pre-foreclosure stage of whatever they did owe because the
Well,
mortgage company wasn't getting paid. But
this was a record on death deed, not a due on death clause. So in other words, you say, hey, I'm not asking you to sign my property over to me today. You're still here. But when you pass, it's already recorded that there's a deed waiting to be recorded that passes the title. West Virginia is like that. A lot of states have mechanisms
Florida,
like that.
Texas,
Yeah.
some states call it a ladybird deed.
Exactly.
Yep.
A lot of states have mechanisms like that. And even if they didn't, she could have just deeded, she's got months to live. She could have just deeded the property over right then and recorded it. And as long as it's before she passes away, it would have been valid. So
Yeah, transferring it before she passes away triggers some
taxes.
taxes.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yep. So
Yep.
cool.
Yep. All
Good,
right.
good
Well, we got
stuff.
Randy
great
with
job,
us. Thank
Scott.
you. That's a great story. Anything else you want to add, Bruce?
No, I'm good. Anything you want to add, Scott? You good? You're back
Oh, we
on.
muted him already.
I didn't have time to black out the names. I don't really care, but for the state of Washington, at least, the lack of affidavit for lack of probate is in the chat. So
Awesome.
it's for WFG, which is a national company. I don't know if it's different, but it probably is for states. But that's what ours looked like.
I love it. Cool. Thank you.
Randy, can we unmute Randy? He's got his hand up, patiently waiting.
I think I'm unmuted, aren't I?
Yeah, you are. Hey, Randy, what's up?
So I do have a question about his story on that. I'm in Arkansas, so my understanding is we have to either go probate, we can't do affidavit of heirship until 5 years is up, and then you can't do probate. You have to do affidavit of heirship. But my question really is, how can you get around the probate? Because the heirs may not know about debts, and that's the notification to creditors to file against the estate. So how do you get around that as far as, I mean, the creditors may not know they're dead.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was relying on my title company to find any liens or anything. And there was one lien, and one of the sons had a lien on against it from some other apartment he didn't pay rent on or got evicted or something. And that came out of his proceeds. But
yeah, but I mean, you could have hospital bills out there that haven't been recorded yet. I just didn't understand. I mean, maybe this is the rule here, but no lawyer and no title company wants to tell anybody about it because, they like it their way. So that's why I'm asking the question, is there a way that I might be able to use this if I just challenge? I like challenging lawyers and I like challenging title companies.
I avoided any attorney I could, and I dealt with my title companies and people I knew in the business and just working. I don't know all the rules, man. I just was like trying to avoid the worst case scenario, which was probate.
Mm-hmm. There will be a set of filters if the state will allow you to do it, and Arkansas may not. But there will be a set of filters that you have to qualify for. So North Carolina lets you do it with real estate quite easily. And the family just has to qualify for a set of this kind of particular set of criteria. And you don't have to notify creditors. You can sell the house and the proceeds can go to the family, or you can transfer deed title to the house, proceeds go to the family, and the debts don't attach to the real estate. So in North Carolina, we can't skip probate entirely, but the real estate can skip probate. So Randy, one thing that you might check, if the estate can't skip probate, maybe the real estate can. So ask that if the real estate can, even if the rest of the estate can't, because the real estate's the biggest thing.
I've got a good attorney here that likes thinking outside the box, and we're good friends. So I'm going to get him to dig into this a little bit.
Cool. Good.
I was lucky that the kids, the mom, because it was the father's property first, and he willed it to her because he passed away. And there was a good track record. There was a good, paper trail. I mean, they had the wills, they had the things in place. The kids had he was taking care of her at the end, so he was living there, but the house is, a mess, deferred maintenance, boxes of stuff. But they went through all the paperwork and they got the documents that were necessary. That made it a lot easier. If they didn't have all that, then it could have been a whole nightmare and, taken months. But they did have the right things that they needed to clear pretty much everything but the minor lien, some property taxes, and the mortgage. And that was it. And they still pocketed 194 grand. So they weren't expecting that, man. They weren't expecting anything. So the cool thing is the sister now has 64 grand in her bank account and they want to buy a house. So
Hmm. Hmm.
there's a little down payment there.
Hey Scott,
Part of the whole
I love your energy. You have a lot of energy of I beat the system, but you have even more energy about hey, I really help these people. And both are kind of fun. You're helping people and you're having fun doing it, which is great. You can tell by the big smile on your face. Yeah, yeah. And you don't mind getting paid at the end either. That's great. All right. Any other hands up out there? I don't see them. Bruce, anything? We can go to Jody to talk about the late mortgage payment. Why don't we do that? Jody, you got a minute. I know other than probate, which Tim and I sold 15 our first day, we did a conference call and had 15 sales. I think this has been our best selling product to date. We've had a really good high demand for it out of the gate. So anything you want to say about that?
Yeah, no, just like you said, there seems to be a good demand and appetite for it. So we're really excited about the product. I have one story to share. One of the new subscribers got some leads and reached out and said, "I'm looking at these leads on PropStream and I'm not seeing they're free and clear." I said, "Exactly. You're getting these before there's a notice of default. So that's the opportunity to get in there early."
Um, I like to say anytime there's movement through a court system, people's motivation goes up. Their motivation stays pretty high for a couple of weeks, and then they realize, hey, nobody's coming after me. Let me relax. They go back into their complacency mode. And so getting these shortly after the first piece of movement, hey, I'm late, there's going to be high motivation. If somebody doesn't convert immediately, that's okay. There will be more movement at some point later. They'll get another notice. It's going to pop back to the top of their mind at some point. But when you work these leads, do know that your objective is to pounce when there's movement, to reach out anytime there's movement that would indicate that somebody's going to have a high motivation. So this is a really, really good and valuable set of data set that you guys can work.
And Matt, I see Matt and I spoke an hour ago about something unrelated, but Matt, do you have anybody? I know it's probably too new, but do you have anybody that you're making those calls for yet on the late mortgage?
Yeah, it's too new, but I mean, we have made calls for similar type of products in the past for that, and I mean, in a lot of cases, especially with you guys getting them early, I think that's going to make a world of difference. And it's not pre-foreclosure or where they're already so far down the line that they're already getting all these calls, and so I think I'm excited. I think it's gonna be a game changer.
Yep. Well, we appreciate it. We had a question from Yvonne, wanted to know if we're finding the banks are giving any forbearance on the late payments. And I think probably like Matt just said, I think it's probably too early for us to accurately judge that. If anybody has some input on that, I know during the old short sale days when everybody was late, I think they were probably a little more forgiving than they are today.
Depends on the
Jody,
servicer, depends on the investor or the trust that owns that note.
good point.
Some are giving no forbearance, no cooperation. They are rushing it through to foreclosure as fast as possible, and some want to work something out. So it depends on that investor, and that's hard to find who the investor. Typically, a trust or an insurance company or something like that that owns the mortgage. It may be a little bit more difficult to find who they are, but they're some of them have an appetite to foreclose and some do not. It depends on kind of why they got into the game.
That's a
A lot
great
of the
point,
COVID
Bruce.
money has gone by now.
That's a great point. And a matter of fact, my wife, who does short sales, has had an uptick in short sales, and she had two in the last couple of weeks, both with bank, same person, send both short sales, both with Bank of America, and the agent couldn't understand why one of them took 10 to 15% less than it was worth, and the other one countered over asking price. Because it's not Bank of America making the decision, it's an individual investor. Bank of America is the servicer, they're the processor. It's the individual investor that laid out the money for the loan that makes the final decision. So it's really, that's a really good answer to Yvonne's question. Totally unpredictable.
Mhm.
Now, I think if there was a wave of foreclosures next month, they might get a little more, overall, they might get a little more lenient and not wanting to bring them back. But so far, I think that's probably not happening. But if anybody has any input on that, just, raise your hand, let us know if you found any circumstances of that happening. What else? Coach Steve, anything you would like to, we don't have any hands up, guys. Come on, raise your hand, ask questions. Brad, there we go. All I got to do is ask and Bernie raises his hand. And I won't make the usual reference to you, Bernie. How's that? I usually say he looks like another famous
Oh,
Bernie.
no, come on.
I won't do that. I won't do that.
You're
Bernie,
doing it now.
Well, I didn't say who this time. Bernie, unmute yourself, please. What's up? Bruce, can you unmute Bernie?
Bernie, can you unmute yourself? Not sure you can. I just gave you permission. He's just punishing Jim. Bernie, you there?
Alyssa, can you unmute Bernie? Bernie, do you know
Try
sign?
to.
Yeah, do you know sign language? Can you take the camera off? There we go. Bernie, can you talk now? No, he's got his hand up. Bernie, at the very beginning of the call, you had to acknowledge that it was being recorded down on the bottom. Maybe you didn't do that, and that'll block you from speaking. It looks like he's having a drink. He's pounding some.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess Bernie's going to recycle and come back.
Jim, you got to get this on the tracks because Tim is going to be so excited to see that you're not keeping this call running smoothly.
Oh, I think it's going. There's less sarcasm already. I can tell you that. We need crowd participation. Come on back, Bernie. How about you guys? What's going on in your market out there? Share that with us. We're 3-4 months into the new NAR ruling issues with the elections over. We talked about that, I don't know, maybe a month or so ago, but anybody have any insights, observations, anything you want to share what's going on in your market?
By the way, I don't know if you guys, several weeks ago, we talked about the data in our markets and everyone agreed with me. I think I was the first person to kick it off and say it feels like there's fewer transactions out there. And then I went and looked. Now, a lot of people were like, oh, yeah, that feels the same way to me. And then I went and looked and I realized that transactions weren't actually down in my market. So one of the questions that popped up is, are there fewer or more off-market transactions? I felt like this was a really interesting data point for you guys to look at in your markets. Go into your county real estate records. In a lot of states, they call this the GIS or the Geographic Information System. I don't know what they call it in your state. Here they call it a GIS. And you can pull all real estate transfers in the last year, and you can look year over year. I did that in the Wake County area, North Carolina. And I saw that year over year, we have either 11 or 12% off market of the transactions every year are off market transactions. And I felt like that was just interesting data to be able to have. Good talking point. It helps you establish some expertise, how it applies to probate, how it applies to this niche. I don't know that it necessarily does, but I think anytime you have something that you can communicate and talk to with your audience, it elevates your credibility. And that's what this business is all about, is being able to present yourself as credible as possible and cause people to think of you first. And so I'm going to encourage you guys to go do the same thing. Just look that up in your county tax records.
And Bernie raised his hand again. Can we unmute him this time? This is Bernie version 2. Are you there? Now I don't see him.
All right.
All right.
I'd be curious, something, Jim, that you just brought up. Would love to hear if people are seeing sellers out there that are refusing to pay a buyer's agent at all. Is that something that's really gaining any traction?
Not in my market. Of course, I'm not active every day. Bruce, what are you seeing?
I don't think it's necessarily gaining significant traction. There will be a certain percentage, generally small percentage of sellers that are probably not wanting to pay a buyer agent commission anyway. A lot of it in a market like this, it's not a blazing hot market. So I think most sellers recognize that they have to contribute a little bit. It's just like there's a certain percentage of sellers that won't pay any agent. I'm not going to pay an agent. Listing agents don't do anything. I've worked with some listing agents and agree they don't do anything. Some, but there's a percentage of people that won't hire any agent. There's a percentage of people that are gonna get away with paying as little as possible. There's a percentage of bargain shoppers. I don't really think, at least not in this market, that is a large ratio of sellers. If you guys are in a market where it is a large ratio sellers, please share.
Yeah, and we're not supposed to discuss individual percentages. I know in my market, when you get up over $1 million, most of them are 2 or 2.5. There's not too many that pay 3% anymore. The cheaper homes, maybe there's more 2.5s than there used to be, but I haven't seen anybody myself that just refused to pay anything. Of course, you're not aware of it until you bring them the offer. I saw one the other day that an agent was up in arms because 6.5, and the buyer's agent was only being offered 2.5, and the listing agent was keeping 3.5. Well, it's the reality of the world, and I'm not sure that wasn't going on even before the NAR ruling. It's probably going on more now because it's more negotiable than it used to be. People are more aware that it's more negotiable, put it that way. I'm afraid to ask, but Carmen has her hand up.
Bernie's hand's back up. Let's go to Bernie first. Sorry, Carmen. Carmen, you can unmute yourself too. Let's give Bernie another try as well. And you're off mute, back on mute. Okay, nobody push anything. Bernie, I'm gonna ask you to unmute. I think there's too many of us trying to push buttons. Let's see if this works. All right, I don't think so. All right, Carmen, go for it.
Hi, I have, it's not a market question. It is, I've been doing mostly working with seniors and helping with clean out and doing all that other kind of stuff. I've got a probate situation where the family's across country. The house value is maybe 175, needs a ton of work. And I've told them I have a minimum because I can't do this for a normal percentage and manage all the work. Are people I'm looking at the group for feedback on if they're charging by the hour, or do they ramp up what commission they get on the house.
Sure.
No,
I'd love to
Go
hear
ahead, Bruce.
feedback on that.
I'll tell you, I was holding a mortgage for someone who needed to sell quickly, and he sold it. And we went, my wife and I went by to talk to him. Honestly, it was a $50,000 condo. He would have sold it. The guy's 89 years old. He would have sold it to me for 20. I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't take advantage of him that much. So I listed it at 10% and paid 7 to myself, at least, and he had no problem with it. And he was aware of it. I think if people are aware, because it wasn't worth my trouble for several $100s to do anything, to put it in there. I think as long as people are aware and you tell them, on the cheaper, on the $1 million plus, I'll take a lower percentage. On the cheaper ones, I need to get a higher percentage to pay the bills, keep lights on, pay my marketing and everything else. So, and Bruce, I know you've done that in the past. You and I talked about that when you've taken what would seem, my wife had the comment, oh, you took advantage of them. I said, no, I think actually I did him a favor. I didn't try to steal the place. I just charged him a higher commission. And as long as he's agreeable, there's nothing unethical about that at all.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yep.
I have never done this, but I've considered running a business on a retainer type of model where let's say I'm working for a seller and I say, hey, my minimum fee is X amount of dollars, and this is the retainer that you're going to pay for. And at the end of the day, at closing, we'll total up the hours. And as long as they're more than this $5,000, hypothetical, $5,000, every extra hour that I've put in is $200. Okay, so you could run your business kind of on a retainer type of model, which Carmen just possibly alluded to. I absolutely, in many cases, and I want to hear some of the others of you that have done this, but in many cases, I've taken a smaller listing and either charged a higher percentage or charged a flat fee. For me, I generally don't take a listing if it's not a $6,000 commission, which is pretty low. That's going to be a really low priced property.
Yeah, this house is $175,000.
Mm-hmm.
There's just no, my hard costs are, photos and clothes or TC and all of that. You're easily $1,500 before you close on the property. So.
And Patty just made a comment. She said she's often taken retainers for helping with the personal property clean out when needed. You could charge them a standard or a regular commission and charge them for all the extra services. As long as they understand and they're in agreement. Is the seller open to that, or you're not sure at this point, Carmen?
We've had an initial conversation, and I'm talking with them again tomorrow. And I've been going by what I've been doing with seniors moving and how much TLC I put into these little projects. So I've there's got to be a threshold. So I appreciate you guys' input.
Someone else just said Joan has done them a flat fee plus a percentage. Three whatever your expenses are.
And I know I need to run it by the broker. Yes, that's true, Patty. Yeah, they are out of town, and the house is a disaster. So I've had worse, but this is right up there. So.
And Scott has some input too. Scott's got his hand back up. Could we unmute him? Hopefully.
These are great ideas. Thank you.
Oh, sure. No, it's a valid point. Everybody needs to be paid what they're worth, and you don't want to take something and end up resenting it, or you don't take something not be able to give it your all because it isn't worth it. Absolutely.
Right. Thank you much.
Oh, sure. Thank you. Good question. Scott's got his hand up. Bruce, can you unmute him?
No, he did. We were clicking at the same time. I don't know what's going on, but it finally unmuted. So quite a while ago, it could have been within a year, but Bruce had on one of the actual training topics when we were doing the the classes. He talked about other brokers, and we talked about going first or last. I just had a listing appointment where I didn't realize she might talk to other agents, but she's a former client. Her and her husband bought a house from me. Now they're listing it because they're getting divorced. He's already out of state, but she doesn't want to get involved that much. She doesn't want to have to do all the things. So I'm thinking of doing what Bruce suggested a while ago, because all these other agents that he's competing with have the slides, and we have a great slide presentation, but it's the same thing. You know, you go through slide by slide and show all the services and whatever, and then you get hired first, and then you talk about commissions and price. But I like Bruce's idea of having a really nice laminated trifold folder and say, here are the packages. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's what I charge for what I do. Because if I'm going to pay for staging, if I'm going to pay for photography and all this other stuff and do clean out or something else like rehab projects or whatever, that's a separate thing. Is I charge a percentage base. I always go for 3. I mean, I used to go for 4 on buyers all the time, but sellers, I go for 3. If I have to negotiate, then it's a matter of, well, what do you want with that? Because I need to know that if I'm going to do staging, I'm charging 3.5%, you know, because photography is already 400 and some bucks. Cleanup, if you do the cleaning and everything, it depends on what the client's willing to do. She doesn't really want to do anything. Well, she's got tenants in there. We don't even know the condition of the property quite yet. I said we need to go out there and take a look. I helped her get her 60-day notice in place. I mean, I've already helped her before I've gotten hired because she's technically reached out to me first, but I got to get the husband's buy off too, because just because I found him the house in 2016, I still got to get the business on the listing side. So I'm offering levels of service where and I asked her on the listing appointment, I said, well, how much do you want to be involved? She goes, not at all. And I said, well, if you want me to do everything, I'm going to charge a little more because you don't have to worry about it and I'll take care of it. And her friend that she brought with her was actually endorsing things for me. It was like, oh God, what a good sidekick. But the old slide presentation on your laptop and stuff, I'm tempted to get a really nice listing brochure like Bruce was talking about. I don't know if he still use that, but it's just different, but it's really highlighted up. Here's the level of services at 2%, 2.5%, 3%, 3.5%, 4%, whatever. I don't want too many, like 3, I think is enough.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Because they'll pick the middle one usually all the time, which is your goal.
So I generally get I get them to pick a price strategy first. Then we pick our pricing based on that strategy. So we talk about in a good market, in a hot market, a good seller's market, we talk about pricing a little under market value, pros and cons, at market value, pros and cons, and 1 or 2% over market value, pros and cons. I get them to pick the strategy. Then we run over comps. I let them tell me what they think the comps say market value is. And then I say, now we need to pick the listing plan. And we go over to the listing plan and we have option 1, 2, and 3. And each one comes at a higher level of service with different marketing options and things like that. And then, so they're choosing that. And the bottom of each one just says, hey, this is a 5% listing, a 7% listing, a 10% listing. Those aren't my prices, but you guys get the idea.
Well, one thing you just said there, Bruce, that's so powerful. You don't say you should list it for 300,000 and here's why. You present the comps and then you say, based on what you've seen here, what do you think we should list it for? People are much more inclined to agree with what they said rather than what you said. So if you let them, and it's not a game, but if you and then how much of a battle you have to fight too. I mean, it might be right on the money or it might be under what you were suggesting. Then you can be the hero and say, let's try a little bit higher. So that's a really, really good point that I haven't heard in a while.
That's kind of what we do, but I mean, I've always been trained to get hired first, or am I the right guy to sell your house? Because if you give them numbers, they can shop you all day long. And I'll guarantee you, and we even use it in our presentation of a broker trap where they're just going to list it for the lowest price to do nothing, or whatever you say to get the listing and then beg for a price reduction. So we get them to see that problem and then get them to hire us based on our presentation. Once they say, yeah, you're the guy, then we'll talk comps and compensation after that. But still, what Bruce was saying, we do this presentation of all the comps, and I have listed on my paper, even though it's a paper CMA, it shows all the comps that are valuable for that house. And I get them to guess, sorry, I get them to guess what that house sold for based on the bedroom, bath, year built, square footage. And people like playing a game, especially a couple. They want to start winning, but their price point in their head is high. Remember, the sellers always want more. Well, you get them the first comp and they look at the pictures, and I say, okay, what do you think that home sold for? And I make them guess, and it becomes a game, and then they're starting to compete and have fun with it. Well, I'll guarantee you their price point from all the comps that they started guessing that they're so off on in the beginning of what it actually sold for, we get down to that price where I want them to be by the end of the 6 comps or whatever. And then I say, okay, based on all these, where do you think your house fits? And they pick where their house fits, and we've got a listing price. And I guarantee you I've been 104.5% over list price in 10 years of my career. This last one was 33% over list. Maybe that bumped it up a little bit, but I love the game because they start playing, and then their guessing becomes more accurate and more accurate and more accurate before they get to the end of it. Now, all of a sudden, you got them off that $1 million price, and they realize that they're only going to get about 800 grand. And then they pick that point where their house looks at in between the lower one and the higher one. And you're right around where you want to be to begin with. It's so, I think we have a good presentation and it works, but I still like the nice brochure, laminated, really nice looking. Hey, and then I don't have to print that crap up every time, except for my comps maybe. But I just like the packages. Here's A, B, and C. How many do you have, Bruce? How many packages?
And Scott, we're getting a lot of good feedback on. I love to play the game and let them guess the price, because people want to be right. When they guess way high the first couple, but they want to be right, so they're going to come closer to guessing low. And then,
it's a magic process that you just can't even believe how they start getting more realistic and accurate on their guesses and their price that they wanted. Because I do that way before we start the presentation. 3 W's, what, when, and why, or whatever. And so I say, what do you want for it? And they give me a price. Well, by the time we're done, that price isn't probably the same. Some of them are low, but most of them are high. One last thing, and I'll shut up. I just have a lot of.
Oh, don't. Carmen thinks you should teach a class about this, and I don't disagree. We may have,
you know what? I can show you. I can show you. We call it the CMA Color Picture Tour, and it works like magic. I'm just saying. But one last thing is there's also a pay for performance. Like, let's say you're going to do all these things, and they still want to discount you. You want the listing. I mean, none of us want to walk away from a listing, but if they're going to negotiate 0.5%, I'm not going to walk away from 0.5%. But I might say, well, which services do you want me to remove, or do you not want, or whatever? But the pay per performance one was pretty unique. One of the brokers brought this up one time, is that, okay, we're going to list it for this, and we're going to take this discount or whatever commission. Let's call it 2.5, 2, whatever. You can pay for performance. So say, okay, so that's your bottom line list price. If we get that, I'll take that commission. So, but if I sell your house for $10 or $20 or $30,000 over list price, how do you want to split that? Because I overperformed and you want to pay me less, but I just did that. And when you talk about a percentage, it's a fraction of the dollars that they're pocketing. 3% is $300 on 10 grand. They're making, a lot more. So it's just a different way to get a discount listing. But if you overperform, you get to keep 50% or 100% of the price you actually sell it for. That's another way to make up for a discounted listing fee.
Great stuff. Appreciate it. Hey, we're coming up on the top of the hour. Bernie, if you want to text your question, just so we can get it in, I'm assuming you're not blocked from texting. Otherwise, we got a couple minutes. Any last minute? And thank you, Coach Scott. You are our new. We'll have to talk about that. We'll have to talk about that class. I think that's a great idea. That's very, very powerful. Very powerful tools you mentioned. Anything, Bruce? Anything you want to add? Bruce, you're muted.
We're good. I'm good. Yeah, we're good.
All right.
Don't mind me.
Last chance. Raise your hands or hold your questions till next week. Any last minute questions?
This is recorded. That's a good question. Blanca,
so.
yeah, it's recorded.
Yes.
It gets goes on to the All the Leads Mastermind podcast and YouTube. So YouTube, All the Leads, you can see all these back, all the past recordings.
All 507 of them.
Yeah.
So,
so Scott just asked a question. So quick, super fast, shameless plug. How do you get a copy of my listing presentation? It is in my new version of Probate Mastery, which is new today. In January, I'm going to start a new version of Probate Mastery. If you guys are not a part of Probate Mastery and you want to get certified, you need to sign up for Probate Mastery. Do it on the training menu of All the Leads. So alltheleads.com, go to training, go to take Probate Mastery certification course. It is the course is going to be redone very substantially. Take it now, but also attend the live versions that we kick out in January. We're going to do a bunch of live classes starting in January for several months and redo it. It's going to be really good. Right now, it is in my version of Probate Mastery. Scott, if you have that, and I know you have Probate Mastery, if you have my version that says Probate Mastery Live, it's in there. It's in session 5. If not, then email support@probatemastery.com and we'll give it to you. And I know that you've taken Probate Mastery, so it should be in your portal.
and Bruce, you may have mentioned this, but let everybody know if you're going to sign up for one of your courses, do it through our website. Where do they go and how do they do that? Make sure if there's any discounts or promotions or anything, take full advantage of going through ATL. It's right on our homepage, right?
So here's the discount right now. Okay. And this is a discount. All right. Right now, there's not a discount tied compared to what you get on my platform. I want to know who is an All the Leads customer. I need to know that. So buy it through All the Leads. The biggest reason to go through All the Leads or to do it now is because once we redo it, we're going to turn what's great content now into unbelievably great content, and the price is going to end up going up. So if you want to get in and kind of lock in at $500 now, then that would be really, really beneficial. You get certified. There's over 30 hours of training in there that's varies between mine and Chad's courses, very specific to how you're going to build your probate business, prospecting, marketing templates, ton of different things that you guys are going to learn a lot from. And we've got loads of past students on this call right now. They can vouch for it. It's going to be even better starting in January, and we're going to make it better via live classes. So anybody that's in is going to have an opportunity to get invited to the live sessions that we do. And there will typically be anywhere from 1 to 3 of those every week for several months.
And Bruce, so much of it is applicable to any type of prospecting. So many of your techniques and the things you teach. It is probate specific, but you can take all those tools and apply them to almost any type of prospecting or marketing you're doing.
Correct.
So, all right. Well, Bernie, you're first up next week. Give us a call if there was anything urgent we didn't get to. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here today. Another great call. I want to particularly thank Scott, Coach Scott, I'm going to call him, Randy, Jody, Yvonne, Carmen, Patty, and we'll give Bernie an honorable mention for trying so hard. I want to thank each of you for actively participating. I want to challenge all of you. Take one great idea, technique, thought that you heard on today's call, go out and put it into practice, and please come back next Thursday and share the results with the group. Thanks for being here. Have a great week, everybody. Same time.